And we're back. So we just finished up addressing. Let's move over to the next worksheet, names. So one of the nice things about naming cells is that we don't have to remember where or what range of cells is actually meaning something. So a lot of times we will name a range of data and then simply refer to that name within a formula. It treats the named range as an absolute cell reference, which is nice. So for example, on this one, if I wanted to create a bunch of count, min, max, median, mode, all that stuff for this particular range of data over here, right, I could do that. I could do count and then come over to here and control shift down arrow, close the parenthesis and hit enter. Right? So I have 540 rows of data. Now I know the next thing says men, but let's just say I copy this down. It copied a count. What happened when I did it? Again, it moved that entire range down one because it's doing that relative reference stuff going on. Right? So that's not good. Right? What we could do is we could come back up here and make these guys absolute. Right? So dollar signs everywhere. And then copy it down. Right? That works. However, what happens if I ever decide to have different stuff there, add rows, that kind of stuff? So an alternative is to name a range of data. So I want to name this prod data. So the way we do, there's multiple ways to do this. One is, first I'm going to select the data. I'm not going to select the header row. I'm just going to select the numbers. Control Shift down arrow. And then up here in the far kind of left hand corner, this thing over here is the name box. Notice how the tooltip pops up when I mouse over top of it. I can go in here and I can just type prod data. Right? So now if I come over here and I say I can if I want to go to prod data, right? I can now see that I have prod data here and it selects it for me. That's good, but really what I'm interested in doing is instead going in here and doing a count of, and I can just type prod and data. Right? Double click it if I want. And now I could copy this all the way down. There'll still be counts, right? I'm not changing the formulas. But notice that when I name the cell range, it points to the absolute reference for it, which is very good. Very good for us. Now, what if I need to delete that, or I need to change it? What you can do is you can hit you can get the name manager. So to get to the name manager, if we go over to the formulas tab and we say right here name manager, we can also define name here, which we could have done otherwise before. Do name manager, and the one I just did, prod data, this one right here, I can edit it. Right? What is it referred to? The scope is workbook. I can click cancel. I can delete it. Say yes. If I delete it, click close. What happens over here? It can't figure out what the prod data was. Right? So that is no good. So I could go back and define a name. Right now, what am I calling it? No, right? So it's only referring to my current cell. So again, if I wanted to do that, I would want to select the cells, define name, and call it prod data. And here I could change the scope, right? These are the different worksheets that are labeled here. Workbook for me right now is fine because I'm not doing anything crazy. You might want to restrict it at some point. Click OK. Notice when I do that, all this stuff came back. I'm going to go into name manager again. I'm going to delete it one more time. Delete. OK. Close. And then what I'm going to do is if I want to to name it another way, I can select everything and then hit Control F3. It brings up the name manager, right? And I can click New, and it has the cells that I have selected here, and I can call this guy prod data. Click OK. Close, and everything came back over here. So naming cell ranges can save you a lot of heartache. Right? Most of the time we don't think in terms of cell ranges, but in terms of what the data actually represents. So you might come up with interesting names. So here's a couple other statistical functions, right? Instead of count, we might want min. What's the smallest? It's a 0. Wow, that's not very interesting. Max, 10. Median. Remember what median is? I line them all up from smallest to largest. It's the very middle one. If I have the same number, or if I have an even number, then the general way to do it is take the two middle numbers and average it. Mode, there are actually two different functions for this, mode.multi and mode.single. We're going to do single. And this is prod data, right? So the mode is 2.3, the median is 2.3. 4.7. The mode, remember, is the value that shows up most frequently if I counted up all the different times it showed up. Mean, average of prod data, right? 4.8. All of these are measures of central tendency. Standard deviation, measure of dispersion. Standard d.s because it's a sample. Here, what I can also do from here inside a formula is hit F3, and it tells me to paste a name, so that way I don't accidentally mistype it. So prod data, close it off, and we see standard deviation is 2.8. And in the ceiling function, there's a ceiling.math. The number, if we wanted to look at, I guess maybe this time I'm not going to use the range, right? I just want a single number. It's 6.6, so the ceiling, what do you think that's going to do? It's going to raise it to the next positive integer for a positive. For a negative, by default, it'll go up closer to 0, right? For positive, it goes away, right? I'm raising it to the ceiling. I'm going to the next integer. Right? You can look at this function. Also, if I want to figure out a function and what it looks like, I can hit this little f of x button, and it tells me what the parameters are. Bold means it's required, others are optional. I can always click help on function, and it talks all about the ceiling.math function if you're interested in that guy. All right, so that does it for named ranges.